And here we are.
Hey, look who it is. It's my brother.
I haven't seen you in like 30 seconds.
It's been a hot couple of minutes.
How are you?
No complaints.
Yeah.
I mean, I certainly do have. That's a lie. I've got plenty of complaints, but none that I'm willing to share with anybody.
I have complaints, and I'm going to share them.
Well, let's have it.
Okay. I don't want to do this show anymore.
Oh, really? You didn't tell me this a half an hour ago.
No, I don't want to do this because I had a long drive today, as you know. I had a very long drive, and on that drive, I listened to another show about movies. It was really good.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was very good. These two guys, they were talking about the movie Scanners.
Oh, that's the David Cronenberg movie, yes.
Yeah. And these two guys, I happened upon this podcast, and they had this amazing rapport. They both had a really good. Oh, one of them was you, actually.
Are you talking about this new podcast that I started doing a month ago?
That you do with Maddie Blake, yeah. And I listened to the Scanners episode today.
You did? Oh, cool.
Yeah, and it was spectacularly entertaining.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, I'm glad I liked it too, because it would have complicated our relationship.
Well, it made for an interesting show tonight, if you were honest about not liking it.
It would have.
Yeah. Well, thanks
for really driven our ratings through the roof. If really, I said,
truly,
what are you doing? What are you?
Yeah, it's this podcast. It's a podcast. They're all little. They're all podcasts. My friend Maddie Blake, who's been podcasting for a while, just asked me to do he started a new one and he wanted me to be his co-host. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, but
you do know.
I clearly conned my older brother into thinking that I knew what I was doing enough to talk to you on this show.
No, I asked you to do this show with me because I felt who knows as little about this stuff as I do and how to do these kinds of things. So Tony would be good. But then you go and do this other show and it's professional and you sound like I'm intimidated to be here with you now.
But don't be. Think of me just as your brother. Think of me just as like an ordinary guy, just like a relatable ordinary guy. We'll get through this just fine.
Okay. I get nervous. I get nervous around celebrity. I always have.
Well, that stuff might come up in today's conversation a little bit. Actually,
it will.
To think of it.
It's going to come up.
Thank you for listening to that, and I'm glad you're.
Where can people find this?
That can be found on iTunes, on any provider of podcast content. It's created on Anchor, so you can go to their platform and see it there, or check it out on iTunes, or just Google has like a search for podcasts and it comes right up.
It's called P for Paranormal.
Rated P for Paranormal.
Rated P for Paranormal. And what do you guys do on the show?
We talk about mostly movies, but we're going to go into TV and maybe some other pop culture as well later on that has to do with the paranormal. So anything from UFOs to ghosts to witches to, psychic stuff. If it's in a movie, we'll talk about it. Maddie, my co-host on that show, is kind of a paranormal expert. He used to have a show on the paranormal and he's way into it. And I'm curious and I'm fascinated by it, but he's kind of an expert. So
you're P-curious.
Yeah, you could say that.
You're para-curious.
Actually, let's come up with another thing than P-curious, just a different category. We'll think about it.
Para-curious work.
Para-curious, okay.
That's better. Yeah.
That's much better. Andy, are you able to talk about anything about why you took this mystery trip today?
Or this long mystery trip?
Yeah, you had some great news today, but I don't know if you can talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a nice step forward on this project I'm working on with two partners, where we have created a new spirit.
Is this a paranormal thing, or
it's no? It's very good. Right, we're both working with spirits.
Yeah,
that's good. Yeah,
tie-in.
maybe we could get Zelda Rubinstein to do our advertising.
I think she should be on the product.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's a new spirit that is, and what's interesting is a fellow who I'm working with on, I'm working on the helping he and his wife work on their novel. And I just started talking about this spirit that we're developing. And it turns out that this guy who I'm working with, unbeknownst to me, was the president of one of the leading flavor companies in the United States. These companies that help you create and standardize the flavor of your beverage or whatever your food product is, because you can't just be mixing it up in your kitchen every day. It has to taste the same, whether you've got 100 bottles or 10,000 bottles.
Right.
And
you never think about.
Yeah, I had never thought about it. And I was so I started talking to him about how we can't get it ever to come out exactly right. And he said, that's because you're not a flavor scientist. And I didn't know that there were flavor scientists.
Did he say, shut up, you're not a flavor scientist? Or did you just say you're
He was very polite. He was very polite. So I took a prototype down to him. I met with him and his lead flavor scientist, and they tasted it, and they both, A, they loved it, and B, they said it was unlike anything that they'd ever helped bring to market before.
Oh, fantastic.
Which was, and these guys are experts in that field, and they're going to work with us to help us bring this to market, which was very exciting.
Great news. That is wonderful news. So, and now you don't have to be like,
or in the middle of trade.
You don't have to be making stuff in the bathtub.
I am so happy that I will never have to make this again. I've been making it for a year and a half now in the kitchen and pulling my hair out trying to get it exactly the same, and now I don't have to worry about it anymore.
So you say spirits, and I is there a technical term for what that is? Spirits? Is it a liqueur or liquor, or what do you?
No, it's a spirit like a vodka or a gin. We're going to be using a neutral grain spirit as our base. It's like vodka is a neutral grain spirit, but then it's infused with a proprietary blend of herbs and spices and botanicals. So that's
basically this is just bay rum.
Yeah, it's bay rum that you can drink. Yeah, right. And that's the part you don't talk about. You don't tell people what the blend is. And we get the formula and lock it from these guys once they've extracted it, and we lock it in a safe and then
very exciting.
Yeah. Well, so I'll be hanging out with George and Brian soon. George with his tequila and Brian with his mezcal, and I'm gonna get a villa on Lake Como and a Vespa.
I think Sammy Hagar has something too. You might hang out with him as well.
Okay, yeah, there we go. I'm looking forward to it. But this isn't why we're here.
Well, no, I mean we do like to catch
not why we're here.
No.
We're here to talk
about a major motion picture.
Right. Oh, but first, I do have to say, I think we have to change the name of this show, though, to two-thirds of the Arkin brothers talk about movies.
Well, we are Arkin brothers.
We are
we are the Arkin brothers. If there's more or less of us, we're still the Arkin brothers.
That's true. Okay.
And I can't. I feel like a little sad that Adam just doesn't like us anymore, or doesn't feel like it's cool to hang out on the show or talk to us anymore. I get it. I really do understand. I do. But it's a sad thing. We're having fun. We'd like to spread the joy. It's fun to have all of us together.
And I do want to say that if I got the lead in a TV series that conflicted with this, I would turn that down to do this.
Oh, I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
As long as you mean a lead in a series that was
A
on
web series that wasn't paying me anything.
Pay you anything.
Yeah.
Potentially pornographic.
Yes.
Like, no, I don't need to do that.
Yeah.
I would turn that down too.
Yeah. Like me making out with George Wendt. I would. Yeah.
How much did you get paid for that again? I just remember. I'd love to hear you. Just want to hear that again. How much?
Like hear me say that I didn't get paid.
You didn't get paid to do that.
I did not get paid for that.
That was a voluntary thing that you didn't.
But I have a piece of the show. So
well, you know. I'm going to stop that whole line. I'm just going to stop.
And I think that show has a piece of me. But 3 Days of the Condor.
I can't think of anything, but I know the song. I know the tune.
Yeah.
All right. 3 Days of the Condor.
3 Days of the Condor.
1975. Directed by Sidney Pollack.
Your personal friend.
I have a couple stories, to be totally honest.
Yeah.
Not to name drop, but I know some fancy people that were in this movie.
Yeah. And I don't. I was not in.
You weren't invited.
I was not invited down to Costa Rica it wasn't Costa Rica. It was
the DR,
the Dominican Republic, right?
Yep. And
Havana with Mr. Pollack and Mr. Redford, and you got to hang out with them.
I did. I got to hang out with them because our pop was making a movie down there with Robert Redford called Havana.
All right. Well, we'll hear about that in a bit, but tell us about this movie.
Well, this is a movie. This is a film that he made with Robert Redford, and it's definitely a classic example of the 70s paranoia, Watergate era, thriller, the espionage paranoia thriller. I think it's probably one of the 2-3 greatest examples of it, really. It's starring Redford, Faye Dunaway, Cliff Robertson, John Houseman, Max von Sydow, or Sydow, don't know, and the marvelous Tina Chen, who I actually also had the privilege to meet and work with once. And
who has my favorite moment in the movie, but we'll get to that.
Okay. Well, I would imagine just hers. She's probably your favorite moment in the movie because she's very lovely. 1975, 3 Days of the Condor, probably most famous now for having one of the great all-time fight scenes in it, which we'll probably talk about.
Oh yeah.
I want to say for me, particularly also notable. I'm a Sidney Pollack fan. I really like his style as a director. The director of photography on this also shot Havana. Another guy that I met, Owen Roisman, who's a hero camera person for me as well. He shot, you know what other things he shot, this guy?
Go for it.
Just The French Connection, The Exorcist, Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, Network, Absence of Malice, and the list goes on. One of the really classic 70s directors of photography, and a really nice guy who I had the pleasure to meet also. That's the movie. You'd seen this before.
I had seen it before.
It's based on a book written by James Grady. I'm assuming you've read this book.
Oh, I read the book well before I saw the movie, because back in that day, I was consuming from the time I was about 11 years old till I had children. Actually, even after I had children, when I was commuting back and forth to the city from Scarsdale, I probably consumed 2 to 3 books like this a week.
Okay. Yeah, I remember you were, and you
all of that stuff.
You gave me a few copies, never gave me this, but you turned me on to,
Well, I turned you on to the guy who we're going to be talking about next week.
Travis McGee.
Yeah.
Yeah. You also, I think, got me a copy of Marathon Man, which is a similar feeling story to this in some ways. I mean, it's quite different, but it's same time period, same paranoia, same city.
Yeah.
Is it a similar book? Is Goldman's book, is it a similar kind of thriller to 3 Days of the Condor in terms of the writing?
Marathon Man?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember in 3 Days of the Condor, I don't really remember the writing. I remember liking the book enough to be excited about the movie coming out.
Right.
But I don't remember the writing the way I remember Goldman's writing, which is
incredible.
It's masterful. I mean,
he's just a master thriller writer. Yeah.
Marathon Man, Magic, all of those things are just.
And they all have great twists and amazing twists in them that you don't see coming.
Yeah, both Marathon Man and Magic have a moment in them where halfway through the book where you have to stop and go read the first half of the book again.
Your whole world,
the whole world just turns upside down, and you realize, crap, I have to read the whole first half of the book again.
Right. Well,
to reorient myself.
Maybe that would have happened in this film more if they had done all 6 days of the Condor.
Yeah,
the book was called.
The 3 days that they cut out, I think, were probably the ones that had the good material in them. Because, although I agree with you that this movie is a classic example of that genre, I don't think it's one of the better ones. Like, I think Marathon Man, The Conversation, Day of the Jackal, Winter Kills, and Parallax View are all better paranoid 70s movies than
than Winter Kills. You're not going to get no argument for me on that. Okay. We're I think probably on the same page about this. Although I will say, what works about 3 Days of the Condor for me works like a charm.
Yeah. They're a piece of it. It's like two movies.
And there's a movie, the other movie.
They made this movie over here, and then they took a really bad movie and said, and let's insert scenes from the really bad movie into the good movie and see what happens.
Willy-nilly. Like, hey, we have a terrible scene.
Yeah.
Let's put that in this movie with a lot of good scenes in it and see if we can combine them. Terrible.
Because you said something in that other show that you do that's really good today that I loved, which was, you said that you were, and in your, all about cinema, and I don't. I will lay claim to knowing literature and story, but the fancy schmancy cinema stuff that I don't know. So you're quoting some French movie magazine.
Very regrettable. I should never have done that.
Yeah. I'm buying you a beret and a cigarette holder.
I'll never live it down.
But the quote really struck me. Was it Renoir? Were you quoting? Who were you quoting?
I wasn't.
You know the quote I'm talking about.
I do. It's probably I don't know whose quote it is. It could have been Truffaut. It could have been Godard. I don't know.
But the quote was that to qualify as a classic, was it classic?
As a worthwhile film. To qualify as a film,
you have to have two great scenes and no bad ones. Mm-hmm. So this is not a worthwhile movie by that definition.
Technically you're right. There are a lot of bad scenes. It pains me to say it. I want to preface this by saying that, I'm a big Sidney Pollack fan, literally, because I liked him as a guy. He was an incredibly nice man in a Hollywood that was often a little bit cold to bystanders, as you well know what that feels like.
Me? Bystanders? What are you talking about?
Yeah, bystander number 1, bystander number 2. I think it's safe to say that Sidney Pollack is like one of the 2 or 3 nicest, most like regular guys that I got to hang out with, and he went out of his way to make me feel comfortable just hanging out on the set. He was respectful of me. I don't know, like 22-year-old kid. He didn't have to pay any attention to me, and he was just super nice. And so I always have a feeling about him when I see his movies. He's got something always that you can tell it's a Sidney Pollack film.
Yeah,
not just because Dave Grusin's going to be playing some sweet jazzy modern jazz funk in there.
Sweet sax.
But because he just kind of, it's, you know, he's easy, he's fun, it's big Hollywood stuff, and I feel like I was disappointed in the middle part, like I was disappointed in the romantic part of this movie. Let's face it. Let's just say it. This is the worst romance in a movie that I think I've seen. It's so off key.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to I don't even know how to deal with it.
Well, it sort of reminded me of it ages about as well as the song from the Fantastics that has the line in it, "The sort of rape you get depends on what you pay."
Oh dear
Right?
God.
That's it from the Fantastics. You know?
It sounds like it is. Yeah, it ages as well as that.
It's like this. The romance is well. Okay, let's compare it to a movie that was parts of it probably somewhat inspired by this. Certainly from it's in the book, The Bourne Identity.
Yeah.
And the kidnapping of a random female to create a subterfuge to help you escape, which Redford kidnaps. For those who don't know, he basically kidnaps Faye Dunaway at gunpoint because people are looking for him and he needs a place to hide, and he knows she lives alone, and he needs nobody can connect him to her. And the same thing in Condor when I mean in Bourne, when he kidnaps, and I should have looked it up before, the woman he kidnaps, who's so spectacular in that movie.
I gotcha.
But it's done so differently. In Bourne, there's no he's a professional, and I mean, I'm not justifying the way he does it, but there's no hint of rape, or I mean, it's just poorly handled.
The whole relationship with her, with Faye Dunaway. I mean, I don't blame her for this at all either.
No.
It's sad because the movie kind of falls apart when she shows up, but it's really the screenwriting it's the script. And they're both asked to do things that make no psychological sense whatsoever. And I mean, typified by the fact that we're supposed to believe that they kind of fall for each other in the midst of what in any reality would be her worst weekend ever. Like,
right.
A time that she would hope to get rid of only by therapy and trauma.
Right.
Therapy. You know, it's really Richard Sydow says Bourne doesn't kidnap Frank Potenta. He offers her money.
That's right. That's what it is.
Thank you, Richard.
Yeah. Good buddy in LA, and another fantastic actor.
Well, get on the show, man. Let's get the party started here.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really unfortunate because, you know, the opening of the film, I think, is really exciting. Great establishment of character, and it's really economical and smart writing.
Yep.
With all the spy stuff.
Yeah.
And with developing his character. I'm not like a huge Redford nut. I guess I've never, felt particularly drawn to him as an actor so much. But
well, that's another thing I want to dive into. Is Redford's one of those guys who he got better. I feel like he's one of those actors who became famous early on because he looks the way he looks.
How does that look? How do you mean?
Well, I've heard people, I don't notice things like this, but I've been told that he's attractive.
Okay. Physically attractive. It's actually physically attractive.
Okay. Yeah. I've been told that.
All right.
But from the Twilight, his episode of the Twilight Zone on, he's one of those people who isn't a very good actor, and then learned how to do a particular thing well that works for him, and then ends up letting him pass as a good actor. But I don't feel like he'd learned that yet. In this movie.
I guess it was he was forming himself.
Could he give me a job?
I don't think he's giving anybody jobs now. I think
he's not giving jobs. So because I just wondered, like, if I'm never going to work again for saying this about Robert Redford.
If Redford's watching this, that's good news, even if he hates it.
I mean, I think he's a great guy and a brilliant actor, and I'd love to work for him.
Look, in the pandemic times when I don't have a vaccine and things are crazy in the world and we don't know what's going to happen and we don't know if show businesses are going to survive, I'm less worried about being honest about my feelings about this particular art form.
All right.
However,
I'm only going to speak the truth.
So anyway, here's the thing. I think Redford's actually really kind of winning in the beginning part of this. It's just that when he's asked to be this romantic figure for her, it just all falls to pieces to me. I buy him as this kind of eager, this guy who reads for the CIA, who's not really a spy, but knows a lot of stuff and is a little bit, a little bit of a rebel. And I even buy that they hired him and that he gets away with some of the antics the kind of anti-authoritarian antics that he gets away with in the office that we see in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
So it's not really giving away a lot. I mean, we spoil everything, so what difference does it make? But the fact of the matter is, within the first 10 minutes, the CIA office that he works at in New York City on the Upper East Side, yes? Upper East, Upper West?
West, I think, because he ends up at the Ansonia and the
okay,
yeah,
and there's a hit on it, and he runs out to do an errand, and he comes back to discover, and we have seen everybody else in that office get murdered. We don't know why, and that's the inciting incident that sets him out basically into the cold, and the whole movie is about him trying to get back in. And everything until he hooks up with her works fine. Cliff Robertson stuff is fun. Max von Sydow is creepy as hell. He's really great in it.
Max von Sydow is great. We're going to have to talk about Cliff Robertson, though.
Well, we have to talk about his hair. And then we have to talk about Cliff Robertson. Because
who let him do that with his hair?
I want it. I don't know. I just really want it.
That is... belongs in the museum. The stages of man, like turning from the monkey to up, Cro-Magnon and then standing up man.
Yeah,
that hair belongs in that exhibit showing the evolution of hair to that progressing to Trump. I mean, I've never seen.
It's extraordinary. It's the biggest comb over, and you're like, but you don't even really need a comb over. Do you need one?
You have that much hair?
So much hair, and it's as big as his head, but it's shaped well. It's very interesting, and I was kind of down with it, but it's worth seeing the movie just for that.
It should have gotten its own credit in the. So my friend Richard wants to know, is there anything to the Condor romance that is reflective of the dysfunction of society's distrust of government? Richard, I love you. I think you're putting way too much on it.
Either that or he's got to get on this show and you got to get a new co-host because I don't even know what he just said. I don't even know what that is.
He's going to beat me up when I get back to LA for,
I don't know. I think that I don't think so. Here's why. Because I think that there's another silly thing about this movie. A little bit silly. Is the big MacGuffin end result thing, the thing that it's about, the thing that it's all hinges on?
Yeah.
To me, that was kind of like a cop-out. I mean, like,
yeah,
I get it, but
he uncovered something that they wouldn't keep secret.
Pretty much. But also, like, something that was not that innovative, a thing to talk to be... I don't know. They didn't make... should we say what it is?
Sure. Yeah.
It's about oil. It's about oil. It's about oil plants where refineries are and stuff.
A CIA plot to maybe get us some oil.
And I feel like if it had been more like if he had been more incredulous, like, are you kidding me? This is all of this. And he kind of does it, but it doesn't feel ironic. It doesn't feel like it doesn't pay off in any way.
No.
Did you agree on that?
Yes.
Yeah. That was disappointing.
Let's talk about I want to talk about some of the things that were horrible.
Okay.
And I want to talk about some of the things that were really terrific.
Good.
Which should we do first? Should we go through all the horrible stuff first and end on the stuff that was really good and worked?
Yeah, because I think there's enough good about the movie to warrant being nice enough to be positive, like end on a good note.
End on a good note. Okay. So,
because I like this movie. I mean, I've seen this movie a bunch and I like it. I mean, it's fun.
Okay.
And what is good is good.
So, we've gone over a lot of the stuff that we thought was really crap, but the first scene in her apartment when they start talking about the photographs,
it's
I wanted to
ridiculous.
shoot myself in the head.
I mean, the fact that, again, it's in the writing. I mean, you couldn't act that well. I don't know how they thought you could. That she's an amateur photographer and has her art up on the walls.
Yeah.
We don't even know. She might be a professional photographer. I don't even know if it's determined that clearly.
Right.
And she's got these prints up on the wall. And he, right after basically like brandishing a gun in her face and being terribly threatening, kind of like stands up and starts wandering around her apartment, kind of looking at stuff and going, oh, you got this. Oh, look at that. And the tone is very odd that he'd do that at all. And he's looking at her pictures and then as if they're trying to say he's a really good sleuth and he understands psychology because he breaks her down by looking at her photographs. And it's just stupid because he clearly doesn't know anything about photography. And he's like, you must be a lonely person because you have a picture of an empty bench.
Yeah, and they're not fall. They're not fall, and they're not winter.
No, it's not winter. It's not fall. It's in between, and that's what gets her. I think that's the line where she gets, "I am yours, no matter what."
Yeah,
no
matter what.
You know that ineffable time at which I took this photograph. You can't resist that.
Yeah, and she falls in love with him, and then there we go. Guy.
The worst love scene ever. Film?
Yeah, like
ever shot.
No, it was I could get more turned on watching the Michael Madsen cutting the guy's ear off in Reservoir Dogs is sexier than that love scene.
All right, I might agree with you on that. I mean, it is. There's a love scene in the movie Superfly that also makes lovemaking look like a bad idea. But this film really does a number, and you're like, wow, you got to, it's beautifully shot. It's Owen Roisman. It's beautiful anamorphic 70 mil movie. It's gorgeous, beautiful lighting. It looks incredible. They look like movie stars.
They look like they don't know how to kiss,
and they don't know what's going on. And she has this thing. They get innovative with the editing because I think Pollack was like, this isn't working at all. Yeah. They're not. They have no chemistry. Let's edit this funny. And so he starts editing this thing where she does these head turns, these jump cuts where she kind of like turns her head to the camera. And it's very stagey and completely incongruous. I don't know what's happening.
I think My Kiss with George Wendt actually is sexier than the love scene in this movie.
Yes. That's objectively true. So that's bad. That's that's pretty rough when you have you've got two big, beautiful, glamorous movie stars in a big, glamorous movie, and you're like, there is no chemistry here. None.
Yeah.
And I gotta say that script, and it's partly it's I mean, I love Pollack, but maybe it's just like he didn't. I don't know. He's a great actor too. I don't know why he wasn't able to get that to work.
All right, let's go to some of the great stuff in this movie.
I'm not finished with the bad stuff.
Oh, you got more bad stuff?
I have one thing I've got to say that's, I don't know if it's bad, because this goes into funny territory to me, where I don't know, maybe my favorite thing in the movie.
Okay.
But okay, when Redford breaks into Atwood's house at the end, near the end of the movie, it's kind of the big climax where he breaks into he finds out who the guy is who's been calling the shots and pulling the strings behind his back.
Right.
And he breaks into his house at like 3 a.m. and wakes the guy up by playing music in his library. So he gets into his library, and it's like, he's a very kind of like conservative dude, Ivy League guy. He's got a big mansion in Washington, and he's got pajamas in a bathroom. He's very white guy, right?
Yeah.
And he wakes him up by playing his stereo in his office.
Yeah.
And it's like super funk play. It's like disco, and I'm like, where did he have this record? Did this guy have that album on the turntable?
Right.
And did Redford just come in and press play on whatever was there?
I thought it was a radio for some reason.
Why would it have been tuned to that station? Does that guy listen to Bootsy Collins? I don't think so.
So Richard Soto says something about the song's lyrics.
That's I'm gonna get you. I got you where I want you. I got you. It's true, Richard, but it's not terribly subtle. And I think they could have found another song that I believe Atwood would listen to. But see, then maybe that's the genius. Maybe he's actually like a kind of a crazy, closeted, crazy guy who like parties like a maniac in Washington to funk music in his bathrobe and plaid pajamas. I don't know. I find it funny. That was my last thing. I on to things we love. On to what we love.
Okay, on to what we love. All right. There's the very subtle when they get Condor's friend, they get Robert Redford's friend to be the guy to try and bring him in.
Right.
And they're putting him in a bulletproof vest, and the guy who we know is going to try to kill Condor is saying to him, "How do you know Condor?" He says, "Well, he was friends with my wife initially," and the guy says, "Yeah, was she ever Condor's girl?" And there's no reason for asking that question other than trying to insert mistrust into the relationship, which I love that little weird, quirky.
That's true. Yeah.
Like this guy's okay. So this guy's just a bad guy. He's going to be the kind of guy who's going to ask a question to make you uncomfortable or to make you think, is this guy actually my friend? Was he screwing my wife before I met her?
Yeah.
And
that is a good moment, and I do like that character a lot. Interestingly, that actor also played a pivotal role in the other really famous paranoia movie, Parallax View. He's got a great role in that film too.
Ew.
Yeah.
Okay. Then also the philosophy discussion between Redford and Max von Sydow at the very end.
Love it.
Is spectacular.
Love that whole character of von Sydow's, and when he offers him a ride, it's fantastic.
Yeah. And
they're trying to kill him for the whole movie, and then he's not at the end.
I'm not being paid to kill you anymore. So there's absolutely nothing personal about it. It's just a job.
It's kind of a European Anton Chigurh, that's a weird kind of philosophy about his job that he had.
But I think another tiny thing that I love, the Equus poster at the train station.
I don't know why that is something I would love or
It
see.
it just brought me back to that time and
Oh, well,
so many memories for me.
yeah.
Particularly of an acting class with Sheldon Patinkin, in which somebody was auditioning to replace in Equus,
Mm.
and brought in the monologue week after week after week after week after
And
week.
did it covered in blood and fully nude in the
To
acting
the
class.
point where we
Wow.
were sitting in class saying, "Oh my God, do we have to listen to the horsefucker monologue again?" You know, things I never thought I would say, but and yet I did.
Yeah, that New York is a beautiful thing to see. It's weird. It's like Amelia and I were watching the movie the other day and realizing that it was like it's our city. I haven't been there in a long time. I mean, I still live there, and I haven't been to New York in a year. It feels like it's strange.
But when Max von Sydow kills Tina Chen, and then they go to the teletype printer that's printing out the not teletype, but the printer that's printing out the text of a book that they're going to have to analyze. Do you remember the line that prints out from the book right after they shoot her?
No.
The ripples spread and subsided gracefully on the smooth surface of the canal is what prints out right after she dies. And that had to be intentional.
I would think so.
Yeah. You know,
if not even from the book, it sounds like a very literary thing.
Yeah. And it's something that I actually checked to see if it was it's not, but it looked at first like it might be a haiku.
Oh, okay.
But it has that feel about it. And that moment, because she's standing in front of a window and Max von Sydow, for people who haven't seen it, this guy who's the postman, referred to as the postman, because he's always dressed as a postman. That's how he gets entrance into places. Who's got this, we'll talk about that scene in a minute, but he's got this amazing machine gun with a silencer on it that makes this terrifying sound. And he's pointing it at Tina Chen, and she's in front of a window. And Max von Sydow says, "Would you step away from the window, please?"
Mm.
And she doesn't. And they have that wonderful shot of the postman just tracking left to get a better angle on her. And she's watching him. And then she says, "I won't scream." And Max von Sydow says, "I know." And then they shoot her.
It's really good. That whole scene is terrifying.
Yeah.
That break-in scene in the beginning, that's I think the hottest piece of filmmaking in the movie, even better than the fight in later. I think this is like truly sets the tone of some pretty violent imagery that you're not expecting in like this kind of Robert Redford romp that you've seen so far. It starts off with a very light tone, this movie.
Right. And you're not expecting it of people who are, old. Like, it's.
You're not expecting Helen Stenborg to get shot with a machine gun and fly across a room. Like, that's not what you're expecting.
And then the old professor guy coming down the stairs, and the guy who's just going to the bathroom.
Yeah, it's really unexpected. It's really violent and sudden, and really effective. I remember seeing it as a kid, and that really stayed with me as just an incredibly shocking piece of filmmaking. It's very much like a Hitchcock sequence, and that's where Pollack really shone. Like, he really comes alive. He's such a master of staging and of blocking actors and blocking action and keeping things feeling real. It's amazing what he did. The
cigarette.
Yeah, on her that she drops on her blouse.
Very upsetting. That's a very upsetting image.
And the little details that he throws in right after they shoot Helen Stenborg, they keep shooting and spray the room with bullets, and the first thing to get hit is that little kiosk of books.
Right.
And that it just reinforcing that this is a war of information, that this is all about, warring and fighting about the information that might be in any of the books that you're seeing.
Right.
And I love Redford in these scenes. I think Redford does a great job of being of keeping that intensity of being super terrified and freaked out and in over his head for that first 20 minutes of the 30 minutes of the movie. I think he does a really great job of it, and really reminds me a lot of who I think has studied him as an actor, Tom Cruise. Man, I kept thinking of Cruise watching this performance almost in particular.
Huh.
There's a certain intensity to every physical beat that he has that's really on point, that I've not seen almost anybody other than Tom Cruise actually do. So for physical acting, he's good at it. And Redford, I think, is great in those scenes. He looks truly terrified. And this brings up a question that I have for you, though, because this is really buried in the movie, like really buried. But they imply a couple of times that maybe he's not who we think he is. That Redford actually might be some kind of other agent that is lying about being just an analyst.
No, I think what that is I think they have set him up to look that Cliff Robertson is setting him up to look that way to John Houseman. The way by killing those two, by the guy, because he gets the assassin with a lucky shot.
Mm-hmm.
And then the assassin kills the other guy, but says that it was Robert Redford, which makes it look like Robert Redford is a really good shot.
I know that moment there. I feel like I want to kind of spin through it again to see if there's others that because they don't make good on that. That's not something that they do, but they do reinforce it a couple times. And then this time when I saw it, and he takes her hostage, like, pretty quickly.
Yeah.
That's pretty much plan A that he has. I mean, he gets out of there, and he's pretty able to pull a gun on a woman in the middle of the street, get her into a car, and do all that stuff. It made me pause for a second. I was like, would an analyst really do that?
I think it's because the books that he reads and the books that he likes, like he has that Dick Tracy reference earlier, and I think it's because he's pulling on all of the stuff that he.
I think you're right. There's something about them. There's a thread of this through the movie that's probably about them not knowing who he is and trying to figure out who he is. But something between that and everything falling apart around when he meets her, and the fact that they're trying to treat Redford as like a sex object movie star.
Right.
They fetishize him in a way in this movie. They do in a lot of his movies.
Yeah.
Where,
but the thing that I think gives the flip side of him being a professional is that his emotional state in that first scene with her is not the emotional state of any kind of professional at all. He's a wreck. And I think that had he been professional, I think he could have, after he kidnapped her, calmed her down and convinced her. I mean, in a wholly different way.
You're missing. I mean, I don't think that they're saying that he is, but I think it's interesting that they bring this up a few times in a way that makes you wonder, because there is something mysterious about him. He does act better in this crisis than anybody just off the street, any book analyst that I've seen. And they make less of a deal than, for instance, in Marathon Man, where Dustin Hoffman really just feels like the wrong guy in the wrong time.
Right.
Redford consistently makes incredibly, like hair trigger choices throughout this movie, and including combat, hand-to-hand combat with somebody who's a trained killer.
Yeah.
In close quarters, in a great fight scene. But that's like what. He was in the Army Corps of Engineers. Like, he didn't learn like Marine SEAL training fighting in the Army Corps of Engineers. Like that's that. So I kept feeling like maybe there was some layer to this that they didn't end up making good on, but
well, that's true. Because if there was a layer to it, they did not end up making good on it.
Let's talk about other things we loved. Because we were going to talk about things we loved.
The fight scene.
Fight scene's great.
The shoes.
Where he knows he's the bad guy because he's not wearing postal worker shoes. Yeah. Nice little details.
Yeah.
Love the phone tracing sequence when he goes to the phone company and sets up that untraceable call and how much time they spend with that technology. I love that.
That's spectacular. The strobe in the fight scene,
stolen from
Rear Window,
and which was then stolen in Wait Until Dark.
Oh, right, Wait Until Dark,
and used in this.
And then was it also in Bourne? Was there a?
I don't remember. I don't really remember. I do remember hearing that fight in Bourne is actually very heavily referenced in that.
The fight in the hotel room with Franco Potente. Yeah.
It's really a heck of a piece of editing and camera work, that fight. It's great. One of my favorite things in it is Houseman too.
Yeah.
I love John Houseman. He's got one of my favorite lines too, when Cliff Robertson, I think it's Cliff Robertson, says after he's talking about his life in the spy world from World War II through World War I. I mean, through World War I to World War II and on. And Cliff Robertson says, "Do you miss that kind of action, sir?" And he goes, "No, I miss that kind of clarity."
Yeah.
Which I thought was a great summation of where things had gotten to in world politics by the 70s,
when we knew who the good guys were and who the bad guys were.
Yeah.
You know that line that Houseman says about I spent I spent the war in the Adriatic with a movie star, on a boat with a movie star. Do you know what that's a reference to?
I should know that.
It's John Houseman didn't do it, but what he's talking about is Sterling Hayden was in the OSS, like running guns to the partisans.
He was talking about Sterling Hayden.
Sterling Hayden was in, that's a reference to Sterling Hayden's work in the war.
Wow. Wow. I guess it also could have, but was it definitely Sterling Hayden? You know that for a fact.
I saw it in one of the trivia things.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. Because what I first thought was the first thing that came to my mind was Hedy Lamarr. That I thought it was a reference to Hedy Lamarr.
Or Errol Flynn, I would have thought maybe too.
Or Jimmy Stewart.
For God's sake.
Who was a bomber pilot,
Yes. I'm looking at notes here. I mean, I keep on going back to this movie because of a few things. It's like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. It's like great. The things that are great are great.
A little nauseous afterwards.
And the things that are not great are like you can kind of fast forward them because they're clearly just like the love scenes, or the supposed love scenes, which are basically just him tormenting her and her being like, "Oh, you're such a wonderful man." Just makes zero sense.
Yeah.
But it does make me want to go see Parallax View really badly again. That's like something I want to see again after this.
We'll watch it and talk about it. We'll do that.
Okay. But not next week.
Not next week, but we will do it. One thing I remember about the Parallax View, I remember seeing it way too young, right?
Yeah.
And being so sad at the end.
Yeah.
I was like, but
Yeah. But the way, and they're like, yeah, exactly. You feel bad now, don't you? You're like, yeah, like, welcome to America, kid.
yeah.
That's where it's going to be disappointing here.
Parallax View was, what year was that?
Parallax View, I want to say, was like the next year. Or maybe, I don't know. I'm looking it up right now.
Earlier.
74, the year before.
Yeah, I was so sad at the end.
It's a sad ending. I mean, it is a sad ending.
Um,
I was sad in the middle too, because Paula Prentice dies. That's sad.
That's
Who wants that to happen?
Nobody wants Paula Prentice to die.
No.
I don't make me tell my Paula Prentice story.
What Paula Prentice story?
I was on set at 8 or 9 years old.
On the set of Catch-22?
Yeah. When they shot the infamous scene of her fully nude on the raft, waving at everybody.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Scarred me deeply.
I would imagine.
But it was, it was the late 60s. Kids were, it was different. It was a different time.
It was a different time. It was a very different time.
Different in the late 60s.
I worked with her and with her husband Richard Benjamin. And I did a show with her.
Yeah.
For months and months in New York.
Yeah.
Lovely person. Both of them are
they're lovely. The two of them were lovely.
She had clothes on the entire time.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
The entire time. I mean, everybody was fully clothed.
Yeah. Do we want to give Jess Osuna any love? The switchboard fella?
Is he the gentleman who was in the wheelchair in the film?
Yeah.
You know what? He's in my notes as one of my favorite things in the movie. Do you know him?
No, but I've seen him in other things, and he deserves some love for his work.
He's a really great part, and he plays it really well, and they shoot him so well. I love how you don't realize he's actually in a chair until about 5 minutes after meeting him, and his language is great. He's one of the first people that uses that weird like CIA language about stuff where he says he's on the phone with Robert Redford, who's just called him saying everybody's just got killed, and the guy's like, well, you shouldn't be calling here. This is not this is not a secure line. Yeah. Then he goes, are you damaged? Yeah. And Redford's like, damaged? What? Yeah. And that's the first of many incidents in the movie where they use this language, which is just not human talk at all. Yeah, he's really great. Yeah. And beautifully shot with him against that incredibly colorful, backdrop. I mean, the whole movie is gorgeous. Owen Roizman shooting anamorphic in the 70s. Come on. It's gorgeous. And poor Faye Dunaway, the poor woman. I don't know how she told a funny story in some trivia that I read about. Oh yeah, doing the scene where like she has to get kind of roughed up by Redford. Yeah, and she said, as if that is scary or intimidating at all. Like Redford's just not bringing the mustard as far as like the intimidation factor. No. She says he was busy one day and had to go off set. And so Sidney Pollack was like stood in for him for her coverage, for her close-ups. And she said when Pollack got in there and started doing his lines, it was actually terrifying. Like he was completely terrifying. And so those close-ups of her reacting are actually not to Redford at all.
Well, no wonder there's a disconnect.
It really doesn't feel like they liked each other. Like it feels like they palpably did not like working together. Like you can feel she got along with Warren Beatty. There's seems like a good energy there. Yeah. This does not feel like it works.
Yeah, because the sexual tension between them and Bonnie and Clyde is It's
weird. It's very weird.
It's really weird, but it's there. And
Yeah.
in this was like two people who never had sex in their lives.
It's
and
just like when the script says we got to do this now.
Put your hand here and kiss that. But yeah. Do you know who plays her boyfriend on the phone?
No, who does?
It's Sidney Pollack on the phone, I think.
Is it? You're probably right. Because directors always do. They're always being the voice of somebody on their movie because no one else will do it. I wish he'd been in it. He's one of the great character actors too.
Yeah, because his turn in Tootsie is spectacular. He's wonderful.
And in Eyes Wide Shut as well. He's incredible.
Yeah.
I'd love to cover other Pollack movies on this sometime. Like I feel like there's a few better ones.
Well, it's your show, so you can do that.
How is that? Wait a minute.
I told you I don't want to do it anymore because you got that other show that's so good, and
I don't know where this is coming from. This is a very
I just want to learn at the feet of the master now is how I feel about things.
You should talk to Matty. All I do is he sends me a link and I'm like, what? We just talk about a movie and he sends me a link and I call him and we talk about, I don't do anything.
Oh, okay. Well, then maybe we both need to talk to him, have him up our game a little bit. Yeah.
I mean, for God's sake. Because I mean, obviously this has not been entertaining so far. We do need somebody to help us figure out how to have an entertaining conversation.
That's true. That's true.
Poor Faye Dunaway. God damn it. Best Cliff Robertson hair ever. And
I'm not a Cliff Robertson fan because he stole the Oscar from our dad.
Well, but it doesn't burn quite as bad once Dad finally got the win. So
yeah,
both have their Oscar now.
Yeah, but this was the Heart of the Lonely Hunter year, which
I think is
my favorite.
It's objectively true that he should have won that award. But what are you going to do? It's not up to us. I mean, I don't think it was up to Cliff Robertson either. That's no reason to have it against the man.
Yeah. All right.
But anyway, if Tina Chen, if you're listening, I don't know why you would be. It's just wonderful.
Every week.
What's that? She
tunes in every week.
Okay. Well,
big fan of the show.
You have the algorithm there. You can track who watches stuff. But Tina was really, really great. She did a lot of different stuff. And
what did you work with her on?
I actually, as an editor, I cut her acting reel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, cool. We didn't work together as actors, but she heard about me and contacted me, and I had the pleasure of working with her and cutting a reel. I remembered her, from this movie and from other things when I was a kid, and so when she introduced this, I don't know if she's still acting. Yeah, she actually did a few recent things. Really, really lovely.
Well, have we exhausted this movie? I mean, I know this movie exhausted me, but
the only other thing I'm going to say is a musical. I love Dave Grusin. There were a couple of cues in this where it was like, we're really going to do light, tinkly jazz piano right after the murder part of this. Is how it was like, New York, hey, and it's just like death and murder. It was really a couple of moments where I thought the music editing was interesting, like the choice of. I'm sure Dave Grusin didn't choose where to put everything.
Right.
So a music editor made that choice, and I was like, maybe not the light, funky jazz, modern jazz piano riff now.
Well, we can call Dave and ask him.
I don't want to. I love Dave. He's a great guy, sweet man. Brilliant artist. Have a lot of his records. Don't want to annoy him in the middle of the night with questions like this.
Yeah, but he's done some of my favorite movie and television music.
Yeah, And I think did almost every Sidney Pollack movie. They work together all the time.
Yeah.
Pollack worked with the same people a lot.
Well, next week, we are going to talk about Darker Than Amber from the novel by John D. MacDonald called Darker Than Amber, about a character named Travis McGee, who is played in this movie by Rod Taylor. And it also stars Theodore Bickel, who used to live across the street from us.
In the village. That's right.
I'd go over there and hang out with him and his wife sometimes.
Yeah.
And Jane Russell is also in it. And John D. MacDonald was his novels were a big influence on me. And he's one of the great American hard-boiled writers.
I am really looking forward to seeing it. I've read some Travis, thanks to you.
I've never seen this movie.
And do you feel you're a Travis fan? So are you?
I'm a huge Travis fan.
Right. And so how do you think you're going to like Rod Taylor as Travis? Like, what's your instinct here?
My instinct is that he's going to be 80%, 70 to 80% on. I think he's probably. I suspect that that Rod Taylor is not going to look like he cuts his own hair with a pair of scissors.
Yeah.
Which I think is what Travis does, right? Doesn't he just?
I think he buzzes it with the clippers.
Right, but he cuts his own hair, as I do now.
As we all do as we get older, save a little money. No one's looking at the hair anyway. Just get rid of it.
That's what I've been doing lately.
I always thought, I like Rod Taylor fine. He's been in a couple movies I love. This is going probably a little early for him, but I always thought somebody like Nolte would have been, for me, more of a Travis character. Rod Taylor's a little bit, what do they call it? Like continental. Yeah. And he's Australian. He's kind of a rough guy, I guess, but he has this kind of urbane thing about him. I always felt Travis was a little bit more like just kind of a rough around the edges guy, but
yeah. But there's a couple of roles that are really hard to like. Travis, Jack Reacher. These are roles that are really hard to cast.
Because Jack Reacher is such a tiny person, it's really hard to find somebody so small that's going to be believably small enough to play him.
Don't get me started on that.
That's what I've read. I don't have any skin in the game.
He's like 6'5" in the novels. He's a foot taller than Tom Cruise.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know, Matthew. I wouldn't know who to cast. But Rod Taylor, great in The Birds. I love that one. That's maybe my
Bob Balaban. Bob Balaban would be perfect. A great Travis McGee.
Great. Coke bottle glasses. Yeah, sandals, just totally Travis McGee. It's Beatnik beard, yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, 3 Days of the Condor.
Yeah. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, tune in next. Oddly enough, we should mention Darker Than Amber seems to be available on YouTube, like just the full movie laying out there on YouTube.
Is it like pay $1 or subscription thing?
No,
or
it just seems to be somebody posted it on YouTube and it's there. It could disappear, I suppose. It doesn't seem to be available anywhere else. So I'm going to try and watch it really quickly up there on YouTube.
I don't know if anybody's screaming about this title. I think you're the only person to have mentioned it in
37. Yeah.
But it's right up my alley. This is exactly the kind of movie I love to check out. I love this period of film, and you know, I feel like we could have this could be funny. I feel like this could be an inadvertently super funny film.
Yeah, it could be. This could be.
It's always hope. It was directed by the same man who directed Enter the Dragon.
Well,
just so you know,
you can't beat that with a stick.
No, because he'll take the stick from you and beat you senseless.
Yeah. So join us next week for that, or tune in on the podcast P is for Paranormal, because I have to say, incredibly proud of my brother.
Oh, hey, that's very sweet. Thank you, man. We have fun on that show. I have fun on this show. I can't pick favorites. I love them both dearly. They're very different.
You can pick favorites. I'm your brother. You're going to have to put up with me for a long time. Matty Blake, he's just some guy.
Then my favorite one is
although actually I've seen Matty Blake. He could beat the crap out of me. So you can.
Matty's a black belt and big and scary.
So. That should be that's my favorite show. I like that show.
Matty's show. Matty's show is my favorite show.
Best show ever.
Yeah.
All right.
Say Matty.
All right. Tune in next week, everybody. Give us a like, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends, tell your parents, tell your children.
What could be bad about that?
We'll see you soon. Good night.
Good night.